This is the Global Broadcasting Service, serving remote outposts since 1928.
Hi, everyone. Welcome aboard the Walt Disney World Express monorail.
Caramba, we have something really big for you today.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
This is the DBC pod with Phil Schoen and Jason Dodge. Hi, friends. Welcome to this week's pod, this show for the week of January 13th, 2025. Excuse me, January 20th, 2025. I'm a week late on that one. But we're live. Thank you for joining. If you're listening, thank you for listening. We got a great show. We got a lot of quick hits, news and rumors. We've got a new segment about construction updates, which is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to do in-park sit-down restaurants. We're going to do Encanto ride vehicle rumors. Goodness, what else? What else are we doing? Did I mention Skeleton Crew review? That rhymes. I'm not sure I like it.
I think that's covered everything, I hope.
Yes.
We'll see what we get to.
We'll see what we get to. We're going to do all of it. This is going to be a 5-hour podcast. Okay, first, Phil, you have a bunch of quick hits you wanted to get to. Let's just start the show running here. So what's going on this week?
Yeah, so breaking news earlier today, we've mentioned this before, then big part of planning your trip and stuff like that is deciding if you're going to buy Lightning Lanes and what type. But there's been another update to the Lightning Lane Premier Pass in that now it is available to all guests. Initially, it was only available to those staying at deluxe resorts. Then it was available to anybody staying on site. And now it will be available to all guests, whether you're staying on site or not. If you're staying on site, you can purchase it 7 days before your resort check-in day. And off site, you can purchase it 3 days before the park day that you intend to use it. And we do know that over Thanksgiving and Christmas and stuff like that, there were days where it's sold out, in advance and stuff like that. So if you're traveling those busy times and you're thinking about buying this, it's kind of relevant to keep that in mind.
So I think this is it. I think we all knew this was coming, or at least suspected that this was coming, because if everybody wants to remember, it started off with the deluxe guests, then resort guests. Now it's everybody. This sold out around the holidays, so people are buying this. This is a, popular thing, I guess, and it's limited fashion, right? It's still limited. Mm-hmm. So I think what Disney's doing here is, I think this is related between the Premier Pass and the Multi-Pass together. They're trying to find what is a good mix. How many Multi-Passes can they sell per day? How many Premier Passes can they sell each day? And I think they're using this information to find a price point, unfortunately, which means I think Multi-Pass goes up because they're going to try to find a threshold of what is good operations and how much profit can they maximize by selling a handful of these things every single day, right? So that might mean Premier Pass gets cheaper, and Multi-Pass gets more expensive. It could mean anything, right? But they're going to probably turn those dials.
And that's what I think is interesting to me is like kind of what is that goal? Because it's funny seeing the immediate reactions from everyone. There's some people that are like, oh, I guess they're not selling enough of them. They got to expand the pool. And then other people are like, oh, well, this means they want everybody to buy this, and then they're going to get rid of Lightning Lane Multi-Pass and only have Premier Pass. And it's probably somewhere in the middle of those two. But it is kind of interesting to see if they are intending to try to have more people buy, like you said, maybe lower the price of Premier Pass a little bit, to have more people buy that, maybe less people with the Multi-Pass. How do they maximize the profits that they make? But the one thing that did make me think a little bit more is like, do you start factoring in, well, if this makes touring really pleasant because you can just walk up to a ride and ride it, do you trade that for staying off property and having a much cheaper accommodations and kind of use those savings towards this and that sort of thing? Or if you're somebody doing not a Disney trip, but like an Orlando, Florida trip, do you think about this because you're saving money on where you're staying and that sort of thing? So I don't know. It'll be interesting, the different strategies, and obviously it makes it much more, I guess, likely that maybe locals might use it or something like that, because before, if you're local, you're not probably staying on site. I don't know. It's interesting though that like all those, we always say we'd love to see some of the spreadsheets that they have behind the scenes and how they're figuring all this out, but it does feel like it's moved fairly quickly from one thing to now being widely open. I
mean, I think with all the dash changes from last year, they're learning patterns with the new system and the new offerings, booking ahead of time, booking 3 at a time. And I think they're finding like they're not hitting their threshold of the max amount of people they can put in the Lightning Lane without destroying the standby line. And I think they're just trying to open this up to everybody. And I think that's essentially what it is. I think what's going to happen is if this becomes even more and more popular, which I don't think. I think we've hit the maximum amount of popularity with it. Maybe it increases 5 to 10%, but I don't think it's drastically going to get that much more popular all of a sudden at that price point, right? Yeah. But I think what they're going to do is, because I believe it's now offered to resort guests 7 days in advance. That still gives those people the advantage of buying it early, and then if there's any left over for everybody else, they can do it. Was it 3 days ahead of time?
3 days ahead of time, they're parked there. Yeah. So that's another thing I'm wondering is if you are traveling, around Christmas, Thanksgiving, those really busy days, and you're staying on property, does it put a little more urgency in you to get it as soon as you can? If you're thinking about getting it because you don't want it to run out once, you want to get it before it's open to the larger population.
Yeah, I mean, again, the biggest key piece of information we have is we just don't know how many of these are being purchased every day. So it's not like, are they selling 1,000 of them a day? Or are they selling 50,000 of them? I mean, is it 5% of the total people going through? I don't know. I don't know the magnitude, so it's kind of hard to guess.
Yeah,
but
even with this announcement, Disney did say they're kept the exact same language that that they're still only having a small amount of these. It's not that they're increasing it, but it could be a small that it was before it was 3%. Now it's 5%. That's still small, but there are more of them. We don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough to speculate, but I think what they're doing is finding the proper amount of availability for everybody to maximize profits, obviously, because that's what they're in the business to do, make money.
Next item is there was a lot of video and stuff like that put up by Disney ahead of the launch or where guests will be able to see at the Haunted Mansion in Disneyland. They've redone the attic scene and they have a new bride in there, and they added a new effect. They basically, the big thing was they wanted to modernize that and give it, a lot, just big new technology to look a lot better. They didn't like how, the current bride looked. And they also changed a little bit of the storyline around it in that she's more of a forlorn lover who, like, all her husbands have passed away, rather than the prior version, which was that, she was holding an axe and that it was implied that she murdered all her husbands. That's at least no longer the case, or at least not as explicitly stated. So I thought it was interesting to see, to make it a little bit less gruesome or a little less. They said some people might be a little sensitive to that, especially kids. We've had TL Madden and other people on our Discord server, so their kids have been a little anxious about the Haunted Mansion. This makes that a little less sinister and stuff like that. And it was just interesting. One other thing that I did want to mention was part of the interview was with Kim Irvine, who's an Imagineer. She's also the daughter of Leota Toombs, who was the model for Madame Leota and stuff like that. And she confirmed that, like, when this ride was put together, it was just a series of scenes that are kind of interconnected. There is no overlying story and that sort of thing. Sometimes people try to force that on there, and it's been developed over the years. The other thing that they added was in the attic scene with the bride, she's holding a candelabra, which is the same candelabra that you see floating earlier in the ride and appears, I believe, in the graveyard scene as well. So they're trying to interconnect that the bride is kind of around the mansion more. So the effect looked really cool in video. I'm pretty excited about all the changes they made. Obviously, it's in Disneyland, so it doesn't, I don't have any trips to Disneyland coming up. And obviously, whenever you change something like this, which people think is a cornerstone to a classic ride, there's a lot of complaining about it, and people are too sensitive and stuff like that. But I don't know. I thought it looked really cool. This ride just seems to always get constant little updates and stuff, and I think this is just the next one. And yes, I don't know. What were your overall thoughts, and is this something you'd like to see happen at the one at Walt Disney World?
So my number one thought is, why does this one attraction constantly get like small little updates? It's the most bizarre thing. I
remember seeing one meme or something like that before. It was like, Imagineers, there are rides other than the Haunted Mansion you can update.
And then, like, the other thing is, like, I want to see, I love updates to rides, right? And I think they should be constantly updating all the attractions with better technology, as long as it doesn't, like, change the feel, change the direction of a ride, that sort of thing. Like, I'm all for it. And I'm kind of, like, torn about changing her from like a Black Widow type figure to just like, you know, a lonely ghost type of thing. One is I like the scary element of it, like, but also I'm adult. But then my other side is like I'm writing this with my youngest daughter, and she's kind of scared of the Haunted Mansion. Last time we went, she was just about to turn 6, right? So she was 5 at the time, and it's like, oh, look, she's holding a knife. She's killed all of her husbands. And I'm like, I stopped myself from saying that because I'm like, I don't know if that's a message that we should discuss, you know, like, you know, when we're on vacation. So it's like, I don't know. I mean, if
how does that snowball? It's like, does that mean mommy's going to kill you?
Yeah, exactly. Like she looks at her mother like a little differently.
Anytime she's got a kitchen knife in her hand. Or...
yeah, right. So like, yeah, I mean, I like the less violence of it, especially in Magic Kingdom. Now, if this was like Universal type of thing, like obviously, right? If this was if Hollywood Studios had like a spooky land potentially, but like, you know, this kind of violence, you know, doesn't really belong at Disney World. Like when we really come down to it, I mean, like, you know, you have I think the most violent thing is probably, you know, the Star Wars stuff where they're shooting phasers, but you never really see anybody really getting shot that much anyway. So like, but anyway, ultimately, I'd love new effects. I'm always 100% for that, and I love the comment where there's no set storyline because it's like, aha, I knew it. Everybody else was inventing stuff when we went through all that drama with the Hatbox Ghost a year ago. So we'll see.
Yep. The next thing is that Festival of the Arts has started, and I've been watching a lot of videos and definitely having a little bit of FOMO
of course
about that I'm not there to see all of it. But one of the new things they did was with all the festivals, they've been updating Communicore Hall, which obviously everyone's been complaining about how bland it is and, you know, that sort of thing. Well, they keep kind of upping it a little bit each festival, and it seems like they've really, I don't know if they just increased the budget or they were like targeting this one, but it actually, all the feedback is it looks great on video. It looks amazing. And what they've done is it's kind of focused around Disney on Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
So they have actual costumes and set pieces and things like that. And there's a whole section where it's like how they make the costumes for Aladdin. And they have some of the puppets from the Lion King on Broadway and just like all different things like that. They've also like, I guess they were stage lit, for lack of a better word, that the lighting looks so much better.
Yeah.
They've like kind of toned it down and have like spotlights on areas. It doesn't look like an open cafeteria and stuff like that. And it looks really good. And if this is like hopefully this is now the new standard for Communicore Hall for all the upcoming festivals as well. And I think if this is what it's going to be, hopefully people, you know, have to give Disney a little credit. Obviously would have been nice if they had some of the stuff earlier, but you know, if this was the plan was always along to get to this sort of thing, then I think that's good. We got to give Disney some credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, I like the overall look of it. It's still a tiny space, and I just laugh at like how much like emphasis this little tiny space is given. Yeah. But I think it looked wonderful. It looked like a nice museum exhibit. It looked like a very well done. Like if you ever go to like trade shows, you can definitely see like the trade show element of it, where just like temporary backstops, good displays, and there are trade show designs that cost millions of dollars, right? This is not cheap at all, but that's the sense I get, and it's good because it has proper lighting, like you mentioned. You go in, you can pass through and kind of just like look at things as you go to the other side, type of thing. So I think they did a wonderful job with that. I really have no other comment. Just I hope that they keep this level of quality throughout the year.
The next one, this came out over the weekend. You know, Disney doesn't usually put out news over the weekend, but this one did.
A little strange.
They've released a little bit more information about the upcoming Disney Starlight, Dream the Night Away, the nighttime parade coming to Magic Kingdom. They had some more concept art, including that one of the floats is Mary Blair inspired and things like that. And then they also had a little bit more information about the Disney villains Unfairly Ever After. They had a new concept art that shows the stage in more detail, and you can really see all the different villains that are going to be represented. And then it seems like there's going to be 3 characters on stage: Cruella de Vil, Captain Hook, and Maleficent. A lot of the other ones will be through the magic mirror and in kind of picture frames, so I guess like screens and stuff like that. And it's the other element that they indicated in here is that the audience at the end will play a role in determining whether these misunderstood villains can win over the crowd. So I guess they're going to be trying to tell their side of the story, and at the end they'll poll the audience somehow to say, like, did they convince you that, you know, they were actually right and mistaken and they're not really the bad guys or whatever like that. So I don't know, any of this new information kind of make you more excited? One thing I kind of I did a poll on Discord to say, are people excited for the villain show? Are they not excited? Is it more of a wait and see? It seemed like most people are kind of in a wait and see mode. I don't know. I kind of feel a little less excited for it the more information comes out. Like, I don't know, this whole idea of like polling the audience if they're really just misunderstood and stuff. It's like, I just want the villains to be bad, not misunderstood and stuff. But I don't know. I know Matt, our friend Matt took the other way where everything that comes out, he's more excited about it. So
I remember like he was posting in Discord in his own Dis Happenings channel. He was like, "Oh man, they have news on the weekend. I gotta wait. I can't wait until Monday to talk about it." I'm like, "What news? What news are you talking about?" And it was like, I saw like I guess it was like Weekend GMA, Good Morning America, right? That just kind of put like it was like a 20-second spot for it, right? I'm like, is this what people are excited about?
Apparently. Yeah.
So I don't really consider it news.
People love concept art.
I mean, the concept art looked basically the same. It's really cool that they kind of showed some premise of it. I mean, I don't care. I'm like, I'll be excited when I go in and it's a good show. Then I'll get excited. I'm like, oh, they did a good thing. I can't wait to see more of this in Villains Land in a decade or whenever it comes out, right? Yeah. 5 years, right? I don't get really stoked for live action shows as much. Like, it should be fun. I can't wait. When it's next summer when I go, I hope it's open so I get to see it. Like, I'm looking forward to a new thing to do in the park. But it's not like, oh, I can't wait. Like, it's not like I am more interested in the construction that's going on, the new lands, the new shape of the parks, putting a new temporary show inside that building because everything in there lasts 3 to 4 years anyway. It's just like, okay, let's see what they want to do. As far as your comment with villains being villains, I think it'd be like a bunch of villains whining and then doing dastardly things on stage and trying to convince the audience to cheer for them. And probably like 9 times out of 10, the audience is going to go boo them and tell them that they're still villains, and then they're going to have an act. But every once in a while, you might have an audience that's like, this is like their 10th time through the show, and they're going to try to make the villains like, whatever type of thing. I think it's going to be more like that, honestly. But yeah, I'm not super excited for this. Not because maybe I'm not. Excitement is not the word for it. I'm looking forward to it, but it's not something I'm paying attention to every single detail before it opens, type of thing. Gotcha. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And in our live chat, Frank posted, sounds like a confusing plot line that might go over the heads of kids, and maybe I just have too much of a childlike mind, and I'm like, or maybe I'm just overthinking it, or I don't know. But I mean, I'll certainly take a wait and see attitude. I'll see anything once, but I don't know. I'm a little less excited than I think some people are about this one, but we'll see. Anything new is good, and we'll see how it goes.
Frank coming strong and coming in another week in a row there, so we appreciate you hopping in there.
So maybe that's maybe this week it's Frank's podcast this week.
Yes, it's Frank's podcast this week. Thanks for joining us live tonight. And again, if you're listening to this after the fact, whether it's on YouTube or whatever, make sure you go scroll down on YouTube and hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. We really appreciate that. If you like the idea of a live show, you want to join, however, Monday nights at 9 o'clock is not a good night for you. If we get enough people coming on or requesting it where we can get a decent amount of people, maybe we might put on a show during the week at an earlier time or a better time. But there needs to be a demand for that. So we appreciate everybody doing that. What else we got?
Next quick thing, media previews happened for the Stella Nova Resort over at the Epic Universe, so at Universal Orlando. It's one of the, I think they call them Prime Value or Value Plus type resorts.
Whatever that means.
Yeah, so it's kind of like not the endless summer resorts, but one level up from that. Still equivalent to like a value at Disney. But brand new resort, obviously looks nice and clean. They have lobby bars, and the hotel rooms look cool. They very much has an outer space theme to it. It kind of looks like the Star Cruiser a little bit, but
rounded windows
for like 1/100th of the price.
Yes.
So we'll see. They look nice, and I'm looking forward to hearing some final reviews. I am thinking that if my wife and I do a couple nights ahead of Destination D23 at Epic Universe, we might stay here because it's a little cheaper than the Helios. I was looking at for nights we would go is around $220 a night.
Reasonable.
Yep. And you get early entrance to the park and stuff like that. So we'll see. And the last quick news item was Space Mountain celebrated its 50th anniversary. It was also, I guess, the 50th anniversary of Carousel of Progress being at Walt Disney World. Obviously, the attraction itself is older than that. But they celebrated it. They kind of lit it up gold. They had some characters out to do that. And I think there's been, I don't know if everybody's doing it or if they're just occasionally doing it, but I've been seeing some footage of rides with the lights on during it. It was kind of like a 3-day celebration and stuff like that. So,
that was on purpose when I saw that? I wasn't diving deep into it.
I don't know. I assumed it was for the 50th or whatever, which of course got people talking like, does it look scarier or less scarier with the
Absolutely
lights on?
scarier.
Absolutely looks scarier because I think even though you're not going to hit one of those cross beams, you kind of looks like you're going to hit one of those cross
Every
beams.
time. I duck even in the dark. It's terrifying.
But I like that they did a little ceremony. They put it out online. It wasn't just like, we got there's a cupcake or something like that. They actually had a little thing for it. And so I think that was nice. So just a quick hit for that. Hopefully they do that for more attractions. And I'll turn it over to you, Jason, because you kind of put this next segment together about construction updates.
Yeah, like I was getting tired of like dropping a construction update in the middle of like any kind of quick hits that kind of gets lost. We're going to see massive amounts of construction across all 4 parks and the property over the next probably decade, but at least what we know for the next 5 years. And I just want to I'm leaving a space in our show notes that I can update as we find things, so I can bring them to you in a nice collection throughout the week, because there's going to be a lot, right? Matt had Drew the Disney Dude on his podcast last week, and he kind of talks about all the different types of construction, the things going on property, and that kind of inspired me. It's like, you know what, we need to have a list that's kind of running of like what's going on. So that being said, I've broken it down into 4 parks, hotels, and miscellaneous, and so kind of this is what's going on property right now. At the Magic Kingdom, the Astro Orbiter is going through a refurb. If you saw some pictures today, it was either on WDW Magic had some, Blog Mickey had some. All the planetary bodies are now out of like their little circles, brackets,
or
whatever you want to call them. So I'm assuming they're just getting cleaned, get some nice finish work on them, clean because there was some kind of like mildewy type of stuff inside those rings, not that you could ever see it. So I guess they're doing some cleaning, some refurb on that. So check it out if you want to see what it looks like. A lot of people are speculating they're going to add stuff to this. I absolutely do not think they're going to add anything to this. I think it's just like a standard refurb for this.
I assume it's that. Part of me hopes they may be doing something with
Of
the ride
course.
vehicles, because they look a little janky and feel a little. That's one ride I feel a little unsafe on.
Yeah.
But it's probably just general maintenance and cleaning and stuff.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they redid the insides of those ride vehicles,
like that,
but that, to me, that considered like that's a refurb, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
something like that. Big Thunder is ripping up track. You can actually see some pictures of them going into the foundation of some of the footings of that track. So that's kind of ongoing. There's a lot of pictures out there. Go on WDW Magic on the forums. There's some forum posters that are posting some of their shots. Jack from DSNY is put up some pictures, and all the major places have they're roughly the same pictures, right? It's just tracks in the air, the crane looking down on it type of thing.
Yeah, I think the last report was all the tracks been removed.
Oh, I missed that part. Okay, so that makes sense. So they're getting it all out of there. So yeah, I would love that to be a better vantage point to kind of like get down and like see into that bit better, but I don't think we're going to be able to.
I don't know. I wonder if
that.
BioReconstruct's going to be doing some flyover soon. He's been
Super
focusing
zoom in,
on,
right?
Yeah, he's been focusing on the different lands at Epic Universe, but maybe he'll have a Magic Kingdom day coming up soon.
So in Animal Kingdom, we've got Tropical Americas breaks ground. There's a photo of some of the executives from the park with like their imaginary shovels and their imaginary pile of dirt, like you like to say on Discord. But it was a nice little ceremony. Last week we mentioned that some of the walls were starting to go up, but they were all like the non-permanent like ferns or whatever, like planters,
like
right?
the movable walkway planters, yeah.
So now some permanent walls have gone up. Some of the signs of the gift shop have come down. And if today you can see even more pictures of the demo from Triceratops Spin. Some like the panels are down and some of the different elements. They're definitely not bulldozing this thing. They're carefully taking it apart piece by piece, which leads me to believe that they might reuse it somewhere, or at least they're saving it for something. I don't know. But I like it when they save things. They just don't trash things that have been in parks that some people love. At Epcot, I didn't have any updates for it this week, but I just want to put it on the list that Spaceship Earth Lounge is being refurbed, opened up sometime in the future. We don't really know anything about it. There's a lot of scaffolding in front of Test Track as they kind of work on that canopy. But again, no major updates on that other than it's going to be opening up, sometime like 8 months from now or so. Maybe 9.
They said late summer, so like I said, I'm hoping for
Whatever
more
that means.
mystery, but we'll see.
You probably get to see it before I do, which is boo. So Hollywood Studios, no real updates other than the villain show that we got a small update with, the new Monsters Inc. land, nothing, Muppets 3D, nothing, and Rock and Roller Coaster changing over to Muppets, nothing. So probably next week, I don't think we're going to get any information on this at all. So this is kind of going to be blank, and I'll just make a point of reference, no updates for this thing. There's a bunch of photos for the Lakeshore Lodge. It's basically like the first into the second floor of the foundation with like 3 giant cranes kind of working around it. It was a nice little conversation we had in Discord. If you're not in Discord, please join Discord. You find links and information below. However, we were talking about like what can they do for transportation over there. You mentioned a Skyliner. I'm like, I don't know if that really works, but maybe they use Discovery Island. They have 2 Skyliners that merge and go to the Contemporary, but it seems overly complicated, I think. You could also put like there's a section of land that could be another monorail resort that's just south of Contemporary, but that land is unsuitable to build on supposedly. That would be really cool because then you could build another monorail resort and some kind of like walkway, above ground walkway to the Wilderness Lodge because it's really just kind of across the street from it type of thing. So that might be really fun, but more likely than not. I posted a picture like showing where the permitted laydown yards are for the Magic Kingdom. They haven't been put down yet, so it's still trees. They haven't been bulldozed. It's sandwiched in between the new highway extension that they're doing and the parks. And if they're going to be laying down the ground like this with gravel yards for all the stuff going in construction, you would have to imagine that a hotel has to be going on there because if they're not demolishing all this land just to let it sit there and do nothing with down the line. So something to look forward to in the years to come. A couple of miscellaneous things. Dumbo Playground queue is closed for refurb. I think it's just kind of like a standard refurb. It'd be down like for a month or so, most likely.
Yeah, I think it was a couple months. The ride's still running, just not playground area.
Yeah, you just get diverted right into the ride. And then the Grand Fiesta Tour is down for refurb. And if you want to see some pictures, I think there's some pictures with it drained. I think if you can see from the restaurant.
Oh yeah, from the restaurant. Yeah.
So you can kind of see that. But yeah, that's kind of go down for. It's a water ride. It's going down for maintenance, but it's now down. So you can if you're going in the next week or so, don't plan on heading in there. Just stuff for some tequila instead, I guess. Right, drown your misery in tequila that you can't go on that ride. But that's it. That's a roundup for construction. I think there's going to be updates every single week, at least like kind of showing you what pictures are up there. So if you want to check the latest progress, I kind of point you in the right direction and where to go. And if you're in Discord, you've probably seen it already. So there you are. So join Discord if you want up to the minute updates on construction. The next segment, Phil, you talk about the groundbreaking for Tropical Americas, the rumors for the ride system for the Encanto ride. We got a kind of slight update. So why don't you take away with some of your speculation?
Yeah, so first, they talked about it on the Disney Dish today. Len has a new touring plan up for how to do Animal Kingdom without buying any lightning lanes. Although when I saw the first step was getting to the park at 6:30 in the morning, so I was out at that point.
Done.
But he said he did that, and he was done with doing all the actual rides by 9:15, and I was like, but his part was like he's there at 6:30. There were already a couple hundred people ahead of him, he said. But then as he said, knowing the park and fast walking, he was number 8 for Flight of Passage. So I'm like, okay, you just like
he hustled,
pushed over a bunch of kids, didn't you? I'm like, and at this point, is it a touring plan or is it just a personal challenge you're doing? But it did make me think like, okay, they've already taken down Dino-Rama. Dinosaur's going to go down at some point. Are they going to add anything to the park to kind of entertain people while there's even less capacity in this park?
He finished all the rides. I'm assuming he just did Flight of Passage, Navi, Kali's down, Expedition.
Kali was up. He did Kali. So
that hasn't closed yet for refurbishment?
No.
I thought maybe it's just about to go down then.
Yeah.
So he did the Pandora rides, then he did Kali, Expedition Everest, Dinosaur. Did he do Tough to Be a Bug?
He didn't do Tough to Be a Bug. He said that was a show, but he did meet Mickey and Minnie, and he did the safari.
Oh, I totally forgot. Well, that makes sense. It's like 3 things, and if you're there, you can knock them all out. Even Expedition Everest in the morning is like completely empty if you walk back that way. Anyway,
yeah, that was his.
I digress. Anyway. Sorry,
but it also led to Jim saying that he's kind of hearing from people that the Merry Menagerie goes over really well, and that as they're thinking of things to do throughout the year, his example was Epcot used to have one festival, now it has 4. So maybe things that they've been doing around the holidays they could bring back for another season or things like that. So they're, we've talked about it before. It's going to be the year of entertainment and stuff like that. But look for maybe things like that.
100%.
To kind of promote people to spend time in the park when there's less attractions.
My kids love the Merry Menagerie.
Yeah.
And, it's going to be a shame when we go in the summer. They're going to be walking down towards the Tree of Life, and it's like, there's nothing to do, right? There's just shops type of thing. So more in-park entertainment is awesome. So I'm glad to hear that.
And then the second thing was on Steve from WDW Magic put out a rumor about what type of ride vehicle that the new Encanto ride is going to have. I guess at first it was like an Omnimover, and then he said, well, not an Omnimover necessarily, but it's not trackless. So it's going to be something on a track, but maybe not exactly like how the Haunted Mansion is or the Ariel ride is, where it's just absolutely continuous ride vehicle. So
I think it's going to be similar to how the vehicle is in either Spaceship Earth or Journey into your Imagination, with it's like two vehicles that are coupled together or multiple. Because if you remember in the concept art, it was like, it looked like there were 2 vehicles, but that was it, right? There wasn't like a line of them going on. So I think it's just gonna be like a multi-vehicle type of train.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because Spaceship Earth is an Omnimover because it just keeps going and going and going. But
that's
true.
Like
Figment or Toy Story Mania, where you kind of get on the track and then it kind of goes into a room and sort of stops and kind of does some things, and then you go to the next room and kind of, which I think could work out well for Encanto because you could kind of go room by room and actually spend a little bit of time in the room versus just kind of at a constant pace going by and stuff like that.
Why did I say that about Spaceship Earth? What am I thinking of? I'm thinking of something completely different, and it's just I'm thinking of like a blue ride vehicle, but I guess
that might be Figment.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't know what's wrong with me. It's too late. It's too late in the day. All right. Well, so the rumor is we don't know anything. It's not going to be a trackless vehicle because they want something that's high capacity and reliable. It's going to be something on a track, whatever it might be. But anyway.
So we'll see. And I was looking at things. Originally there was some thought that it was just based on the concept art. It kind of looked like a boat, so people thought it was going to be a water ride, which those do have the advantage of having a very high capacity. But I just don't see how that fit going through the house.
Yeah, doesn't make sense.
Like that just didn't make sense. Obviously, a lot of people, myself included, said, "Oh, it could be like Mystic Manor. That's another place where the house comes to life and stuff like that, which is a trackless ride vehicle." Problem with those, though, is they go down kind of a lot. I mean, I was doing some stats from Touring Plans. Remy's down like 15% of the time, and we know all the issues with Rise and stuff like that. So if you have something that's like an Omnimover, those are really reliable. And they tend to do a very high hourly capacity.
And it's less expensive to maintain and build.
Less expensive, yeah, exactly. So I think it would fit in really well with Animal Kingdom. I was wondering, though, if they would do something like this where, because with, say, the Haunted Mansion, you every ride you have, at least 3 or 4 times it kind of slows down or stops for a minute because somebody needs a little time getting on or off. If they could come up with something that has kind of a separate loading dock, almost like how the Skyliner has that separate loading area, or how Toy Story Mania works, where you kind of get in the vehicle and then you're added to the track. Basically like the next generation of Omnimover.
That'd be great.
Kind of try to minimize that impact, I think would be pretty cool. So maybe that sounds like that's they're kind of leaning into something like that. But I guess we'll see.
Just to answer Matt's question in chat, this was posted at like 5:30 this evening. Somebody wrote, nothing official, but WDW Magic, I think, indicated that it will be an Omnimover. And then he did respond saying, not exactly an Omnimover, but not trackless. So read into that what you will. So that's basically, it's a track and something goes along it, but it's not a unending train of vehicles, I guess, right?
Exactly, yeah. So I guess we'll see. And that takes us to our Skeleton Crew review.
We are like speeding through this show. Like, I don't even know what's happening right now, Phil. All right, Skeleton Crew. Right, we used to do, if you remember from some of our first YouTube shows, we did like a bonus show during the week where Phil and I watched Book of Boba Fett. And I think we did some Mandalorian also.
Yeah, I think it started with Mandalorian, yeah.
And we did Loki too, season 1.
Yeah.
And then we'd watch it and immediately record with our like hot takes, right? This would be Phil's second viewing because he breaks up and watches these things. And this is my first viewing, so it was pretty interesting. So anyway, Skeleton Crew, the last episode was last week. It took a major hit, Phil, because not a lot of people were watching it. But I don't think it was the subject matter. I just think it was the damage done to the Star Wars brand from Acolyte. How do you feel, before we start talking about the show, its reception and its kind of
One
metrics?
Thing, yeah, because I've definitely seen that people are like, oh, it's an all-time low for viewership and stuff. I was trying to find more data, and I couldn't find it for like later episodes in the season because all the comments are about the first, like the 2-episode premiere and how that was lower than the Acolyte and stuff like that. But
there's no Nielsen ratings yet?
I didn't see that anything. Maybe I just don't know how to search for things, but I didn't see things from later episodes. But I know part of the problem with the Acolyte was it started okay, but then people really didn't like it, and like by the end, the viewership was super low. With this one, because I think word of mouth was pretty positive, I saw it had a 91% critic review and 80-something%, fan review on Rotten Tomatoes and stuff. That maybe even if it started a little low, it could kind of maintain that and maybe improve over time, which would tell Disney that, hey, people like the show. Hopefully, at least the fan reception to it has been strong, and the people behind it seem to get what makes a good Star Wars show and what makes a good television show, and period. That they'll at least get another property, even if it's not season 2 of Skeleton Crew.
When did Skeleton Crew debut? Do you remember the date? Was that like first week of December?
Yeah, it was December 13th or something like that.
Just the Nielsen ratings that are available to the public, maybe this is all of them, are only available for the week of the December 16th.
Yeah,
right?
I think that might be the week it came out. Yeah.
So we don't have ratings for further episodes. So they might have changed because I think it got really great word of mouth. And now for what I want, before I talk about how I liked it, I just want to talk about how it fits within Star Wars, because I've been watching some of the Star Wars streams, or YouTube channels out there like Star Wars Theory and a bunch of other people in the podcast that they do.
Yep.
They were very much like, it was a great show. It was made for kids, but it was fun. They enjoyed it, but it's like, this wasn't really Star Wars. And I vehemently disagree with that reaction, because some of these guys, they're all millennials. They're all grew up on like Clone Wars cartoons, and they're like, this is not Star Wars because it was made for kids. I'm like, the Clone Wars was like for kids. It's like made for me like a Saturday morning cartoon type of thing. So I kind of got a chuckle out of that. I think it's absolutely Star Wars, because Star Wars is not about specific things. It's about like the settings, like the sounds, the vehicles, droids, pirates, the shape of the spaceships, like in the terminology. So anything could be in that. And what I thought was really good about Skeleton Crew is, yeah, you didn't have Jedi flying across the screen and doing all these super crazy things. You had an extremely well done character driven show, which is what we haven't got. Like Acolyte was not character driven whatsoever. Skeleton Crew was, you could put any setting behind those characters, and it was just such a fantastic show. At least well written. It was very well acted, well directed. Not that I'm a critique of right. Direction. Like, I just know when it's bad direction and when I don't know when I don't notice it. Right. So when it's not jarring to me. The scene to scene was really good. The episode length could have been a little bit longer for some of them, but ultimately it was a good show. I enjoyed watching it from a week to week basis, and my family loved it. Like, this is the first time my kids. And the funny thing is, we were watching Star Wars, we were watching Skeleton Crew, and then my daughter saw Young Jedi, that cartoon that's on.
Oh yeah.
And she started watching the heck out of that thing. Like, this was an excellent show to, like, if you get your kids into Star Wars, if you grew up on Star Wars, but Star Wars has been basically garbage in the last decade, from the sequel trilogy to all these Disney Plus shows that are good or bad or boring or whatever, and kids these days are not like gravitating to Star Wars as much. This one got them actually interested, because none of my kids care about Star Wars, but like, they're like, this is really awesome, this was a great show, they couldn't wait to see it, and like, they want to watch more Star Wars. So if you got young kids, teenagers, whatever, put it on. It's enjoyable. What do you think, Phil? Do you agree mostly?
I have very similar thoughts. I was actually going to mention that this is the first show I can remember, and I can't even remember the last time we did that the whole family was like, when's the next episode? We're going to all get together and watch it together. And, we even let the kids it's a little bit past some of their bedtime. So we let them stay up on the Tuesday nights to watch it. And then you had to get ready for bed if you wanted to watch it, that sort of thing. and they all enjoyed it and they couldn't wait for the next episode. We all love Neil, and that sort of thing. So I thought it was great. It reminded us of a lot of the shows we had from, like Goonies and stuff like that from when we were kids. It really has that vibe to it, and the story was really good. It had the nice slow beats, and it really did kind of connect a lot to Star Wars with, the young kid having to go off his home planet to have adventures, but then find out what it really actually means to be a good guy and that sort of thing. I mean, that's really kind of what happened in the show, and it fit in really well. And it's great because there were tons of Easter eggs to other Star Wars stuff, but you didn't have to know any of it to understand and enjoy the show. There's only one other one character in it that's been in anything else, and it's a very minor character. You can go crazy with the theories about what happens with the money and how it ties into other things, but you don't need to know any of that to enjoy it as just a fun show and that was the other thing I was going to get back to. We've talked about that a lot, where it felt like fun and excitement was missing from Disney for a while. Yeah. And it kind of feels that way with Star Wars too. And this show is just fun. And sometimes you just need a fun show, right? So
here, like, if the prequel trilogy was shot with kids like Skeleton Crew did, where they treated a kid that is, I don't know, middle school, like the kids were probably around like 10, 11, 12 years old, I think, somewhere in that age group. If the prequel trilogy actually respected children and wrote them well, I don't think the prequel, at least Phantom Menace, would have gotten as much hate that it did at the time, because they did really well writing these kids. I mean, the kids were great actors. I mean, like, they really nailed what they were supposed to do. They weren't like, oh, dumb kids making dumb decisions, doing that type of thing. It was like the thing is
they kind of did, though.
But true to fashion of kids, like, they made dumb kid decisions.
They looked like real kids. They acted like how real kids would. Yeah.
I mean, that's my point. It's not like I'm like a 40, 50-year-old guy or gal writing this and like, what would a kid do? Like, I think they would do this, and has no idea what a kid would do at that age. But you and me having kids that same age, be like, yeah, my son would have done that. Yeah, my daughter would have done that. I mean,
son definitely would have pushed that button.
Yeah, it's totally relatable. But like, they wrote them in a way that, like, if you're watching it with your kids or you're watching it as a parent, like, you connect with that a little bit. Like, it's not maybe not that you connect, but you like, it's believable, right? Like, my kids would definitely explore in something like that, hit a bunch of buttons, and all of a sudden a ship takes off, right? Like, obviously that's not going to happen in your backyard, but you could see your kids in that situation doing that. And it's similar to how, like, Goonies was. They wrote that story very well with kids, and you can see them going off on their adventure too. So I
also like the you were talking a lot about the kids, but I also like the adults, that the adults weren't automatic. Like, sometimes in these shows, it's like some adult parent who's never done any of this all of a sudden is like Batman and able to like figure everything out. These parents were like kind of bumbling through things and doing the best they could, but because they wanted to save their kids, but they weren't really good at it and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, it's like you and I, where like our kids are missing. We have no idea how to save a kid like off planet or something else like that, right? So I like that. One of the notes is you mentioned here what a lesson learned about Disney, because you brought it up before. I think what Disney really needs to learn quickly is Star Wars will be well received no matter what, right? There is damage to the brand, right? But it's all temporary. Mm-hmm. People want good Star Wars. I don't care who you are, what you like, you don't like, if you're a prequel person or a sequel person or a Clone Wars person, an OT person, whatever your fandom is in Star Wars, everybody wants good characters, good writing, right? That's it. That's the baseline. Put a Star Wars background, have really great characters, have good writing, good storytelling, right? Yep. Nothing. I rank these things in Discord, and you're like, darn, that would make a boring podcast because we agree, right? So we ranked Disney Plus shows in order, and you can probably tell that there's a similarities between all these. So Mandalorian season 1 was my all-time favorite Disney Plus Star Wars thing. It was just very well written. Good stories, good character. The second favorite was Skeleton Crew. Third favorite was Mando season 2, because it was Andor. Did I order them these way? I might be getting these mixed up, but it was basically Mando season 1 and 2, Skeleton Crew, and Andor are all kind of on the same plateau, whatever way you want to order them. Then there's like everything else, right? And Acolyte had really good sets, but the storyline was bad, the writing was bad, the direction was bad, and the story was just not good. Book of Boba Fett was basically Mandalorian season 2.5, and they basically destroyed the character of Boba Fett. Like, no one wants to do anything with Boba Fett anymore because it was ridiculous. Obi-Wan was a really bad show, but with some really cool Darth Vader scenes. That's the only redeeming quality of that show, is seeing Darth Vader
And young
being
Leia,
awesome.
I think was good.
But like, she was a fine actress. But some of the scenes with her were just like, it doesn't make sense. Like chasing through the
That one
forest
also
thing,
definitely
whatever.
Felt like it was supposed, and I think it was originally meant to be a movie and then became a show. I think it should have stayed as a movie.
Well, this is off track here again because it's Star Wars, so of course we're off track. Star Wars Theory, the YouTube channel, interviewed a gentleman that was a writer for one of the original Obi-Wan movie treatments, and it was written as a 3-part series. And if you're interested in that, go dig that up. It's an interesting listen. It's about a 40-minute interview, and you start listening to his ideas and how he wanted to do things. You're like, I want this. Give this to me. And of course, it was turned away, that sort of thing, as it was going through production. And then all the other Star Wars stuff. Mando season 3 was just too much. Ahsoka was just terribly written. Like, it was like you could probably condense Ahsoka season 3 into like a 140-minute episode because nothing happened in that show except for a couple things. That being said, Skeleton Crew, I think, nailed it. People are going to love it. I think it's just going to grow legs as people realize that, this was actually good because they were trained from the Acolyte and all the other nonsense that went around with it, that Star Wars is bad. Skeleton Crew is good. So hopefully they nail it with Andor season 2, which is coming up soon. And then maybe my only thing that I'm scared about, and I know I've been on a rant now for about 10 minutes with this film. I'm sorry. I'm very concerned about the Mando and Grogu movie. There's some leaks out there about who the big bad is, what the storyline is, and I'm not going to spoil any leaks. It's just leaving a lot of people disappointed and confused. Just put it that way. And potentially that's, again, Filoni's baby. I just don't think he belongs writing and directing anything. I think if they need to get a viewing of that and figure out whether or not that goes straight to Disney Plus or just completely tank it, because if you put out another movie, since it'll be 6 years since the last Star Wars movie hits theaters, and if that thing bombs at like 300 million intake like that, that's just going to damage the brand entirely. Yeah. So Disney needs to realize that they need to just find some good writing, some good stories, and let it breathe. And that's it. And then I finish my rant right now. Do you have anything to add? Because I took all your time.
No, I think it's I think the big thing is just have good stories with people that have like a very clear point of view, and that it's character driven, and just kind of focus on that. And I think what's worked most well with both Skeleton Crew and Andor is they're very good TV shows first that just happen to be set in the Star Wars universe versus like over reliant on elements of the Star Wars universe, which I think was Ahsoka's downfall.
Yeah, stop tying everything in. Just tell a story.
Yeah,
oh,
exactly.
Okay. I'll leave it with this. Do you think there should be a season 2?
If they have a good story and they want to, I think it could be interesting because the kids will get older and it could be like maybe Wim starts going off world and doing things. I mean, I would be interested in it, but don't do it just because like, oh, people like this, let's force a season 2. It's like, if it makes sense, great. If it makes sense for these characters to appear in an episode of something, great. But like, don't force it.
I don't want a season 2, right?
Okay.
Because as soon as you start putting these kids in other situations, it's going to be forced, right? Mm-hmm. These kids went on an adventure. They're back with their parents. They have to go live their lives. A grand adventure is not going to happen again to them in all likelihood. Because if it does, it's just going to be forced, right?
Right.
So anybody that they know is basically captured or dead from the pirates. That sort of thing at the end. Hopefully, I'm not spoiling this for anybody, but spoilers, I guess. Whatever. John is an interesting character, but he's not interesting enough to create a story around him. Even though they kind of let that be open because he was still on planet. He's just like, we don't know what happens. Maybe he's arrested, whatever. I just think it's just going to be too ham-fisted. What I would like for them to do is take the writers and the director and the producer of this show and give them more money and say, go make another story. I mean, let them make up something, but don't drag more the same characters through things because it's not going to be interesting.
No, I'm all for that.
We've got more, Phil. We got more. We have no DBC engagement today, but we're going to go over our in-park sit-down restaurants. We're going to do this. We got 10 minutes
just
to do this thing here.
The DBC engagement last week was like, tell us about a bad negative dining experience you had, which some people shared in Discord. And if you want to do so, you can share that as well. It can kind of be a little therapy and venting session and stuff like that. But we're not going to take up time and try to keep things positive and that sort of thing. Instead, we're going to look at
no. The true thing was we wanted to post this. Not many people, I guess, had bad experiences worth writing about. Yeah. And then before anybody else could chime in, you dropped a top 3 in there, and then everybody started talking about that, which is probably a better thing to do anyway. Exactly. So that was good. But no, so. Our DBC engagement for the next week is basically going to be answering the questions that we have listed here. We'll post them for tomorrow or for Tuesday, I guess. And then, that is tomorrow, by the way. So, just to answer the questions that we answered, because I guess people still like doing that as well. So that'll be a DBC engagement. So go ahead, Phil.
Yeah. So the category is in-park table service restaurants. And rather than doing just pick your top 3, bottom 3, as I was thinking through things, there's kind of different ways I think about each of these restaurants. So I have 5 different categories, and you have to pick one answer, one restaurant that it fits this category for you. So the first one, and I guess we'll go one by one.
Yep.
Is what is your favorite? I put fancy or signature or kind of like just kind of, a nicer sit-down restaurant that's your favorite one that's in park.
So what I did was I went to the Disney website. I did in park or theme park restaurants, and then there is I can't recall if it's like signature dining. I think is the thing I clicked off on, and they listed only a handful of these, and I'll list them right here. So it's Tiffin's, Hollywood Brown Derby, La Cellière, Monsieur Paul, and Tucumate. And I've been to none of these, but technically I've been to Tiffin's because I was at the Nomad Lounge, right? So I had a taste of some of their food. So I guess that's my favorite. My lesson I learned, because we're going to go through some of these categories, like I need to do more eating, right? at Disney parks, because I gotta start dragging my kids into these. My oldest 2 are kind of okay for nice meals, but my youngest is still like, I want apples and cheese, please. So what is mine? I guess I have to say Tiffin's only because that's the only one I eat at, and it's absolutely fantastic. I would love to go and have a regular sit-down meal. But what about you, Phil?
So mine was actually Tiffin's as well, but I've actually eaten there at the main restaurant. It's just everything I want out of a nice higher end restaurant. It's super well themed. The food was really good. Service was great. Little unique menu. It's not kind of your everyday type thing. So everything's great. And the other ones that I have eaten at have been good, but not as, Hollywood Brown Derby was okay, but the meal took forever. And it's just some of the other ones just aren't as memorable. But for me, it's Tiffin's. The next category is which is, in your mind, is the most underrated table service restaurant that's in park table service restaurant.
So this is a tough one, and I don't really have one that's underrated per se. I have things that can be underrated for different reasons. Mm-hmm. None of the signature meals would be underrated. I think they're basically properly rated for what they are. Some of the character meals, I guess I have 2, and I don't know which ones they should. Which ones is Tusker House? I think is underrated because it is a different menu, but it's absolutely fantastic. It's better than any of the other buffets that are out there, I think, for most meals. And then the other one, at least in park meals, and the other one is it just popped out of my head, Crystal Palace, because most people think it's just like a busy, crowded place, whatever. But the food, honestly, is pretty decent. I mean, they're buffets, but I picked 2 buffets. Oh, no. And then I guess, God, I have another one. It just popped in my head here. Skipper Cantinas, I think, is tragically underrated. I think the menu is absolutely fantastic. And you can always get a table there because it's almost never busy. But those would be my 3. I don't know how you call them underrated. I mean, because sometimes it's hard to get reservations. If it's hard to get a reservation, I guess it's not underrated. But I think Skipper Canteen, if I had to pick one of those 3, is probably the most underrated one because not a lot of people talk about it. And it's in Magic Kingdom. And people say Magic Kingdom has no good food, but that has good food.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good answer. The one I actually went for, though, is Spice Road Table. That's over in Morocco in Epcot. It's one of our favorites. The setting is beautiful right on the water there. They have a really nice menu. We love sort of tapas and sharing food and stuff like that, and that's what that is, which there's not that many of those types of restaurants at Epcot and at Disney in general. We like how the setup for the kids' meals there. You can see the fireworks there. So we've seen, we saw illumination several times from there and stuff like that. So I think that's one just people don't think of. I think they think the menu's like too exotic or something like that, but it definitely has some things that like maybe it has a more exotic sounding name, but it's not that out there.
That's an interesting pick because I could see why you would think it's underrated. I don't think it's underrated, but I don't think it's overrated. I think it's just kind of
It's
like,
rated.
It's just people go or don't go. I don't know.
I just don't hear a lot of talking about it.
I don't either. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe it is underrated, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about a lot of different restaurants. Also, does that make them all underrated? I don't know. But I mean, it's a fine example. I think. What's next?
Next category is which restaurant that you tried that surprised you the most. I was in my head. I was thinking positive. I guess it could be surprise you in a negative way too, but kind of one that maybe you went in with lower expectations and you're like, wow, that was actually really good, and I would come back here again when I didn't know that would be the case.
You go first because I want to. I think I know which one it is.
Yeah. So for me, I picked. It was from our last trip. It was Yak and Yak.
Yes, I knew it was that one. Okay, that's what I guessed. Go ahead.
That was just one that it wasn't. I don't know. I know a lot of people talk about it, and it's like one of their must-dos and stuff like that. But the menu never jumped out at me. The special dessert didn't sound that great that everyone loves there and stuff like that. But this last trip I talked about it. But it was absolutely fantastic, and price-wise by Disney standards was totally reasonable. And I absolutely would not hesitate to go back again. So that is the one that surprised me the most.
I mean, I don't have one that. I mean, I guess I do so much research for these things and watch so many videos. Nothing really surprises me.
And maybe
so
that's why
kind
this
of
one
tough.
surprised me because we didn't do any research. It was just
okay.
like, my son was like, "I want to eat there." I was like, "Oh, okay. I guess we'll eat there." It wasn't something planned.
You wanted to keep this one positive, but I'm going to go negative on this one. Space 220 surprised me. It surprised me that the food was actually really good. I liked the food there. But the setting was surprising to me, right? Like I was trying to get a reservation for this. This was just after it opened that year from coming out of the pandemic, and it was just ultimately boring and put me to sleep just because it's all like quiet, spacey music in there, and it's just like very sterile, very clean. The food was delicious. Don't like the prefix menu, but that's a story for another day. But that one kind of surprised me. Like I thought I would like it better this setting because I'm a big space nerd, right? But the effects were like the screens and everything were awesome. It's just I thought there was going to be more.
I thought that would be. I agree with you there. That was a little like the screens. What was going on was boring. I thought there'd be more things like ships flying around and things happening, and there was very little of that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. What's the next category?
Okay. Next category, 2 more to go. Character meal. What is your favorite, or do you think is best in-park character meal?
I mean, I don't think there's any competition. The best character meal is Cinderella's Royal Table. The food is fine. The price is very, very high. But like, when else are you going to be eating in the castle? I mean, that trumps everything. But if you want to take away the castle element of everything and just go character meal, I think Akershus is probably one of the best. If you have kids that want to meet princesses, it's reasonably priced. The food is very good. It's family style. It's basically all you could eat. You can always ask for more, that sort of thing. And I've been there twice, and the characters have always been gracious with their time. Matt's in chat right now saying Topolino's or Artist Point. I like Artist Point, but it wouldn't be my favorite only because I don't like the room that it's in, and I don't like those silly green vine things that they place the platters on. I don't.
It's
like
also
those.
not in a park.
Well, that's true. That's true. And so is Topolino's. Maybe we'll do an out of park one the next time.
Yeah, maybe next time.
But I think if we're going with a character interaction, I want to say Akershus is really good. But if we want to go for like combo like food and character, Tusker House is always, I think, is the best one. Right? Great food, great selection. It's big enough so you don't feel like you're crammed in there. Because they have a really big back room, and you get to see the Fab Five, which is always awesome. So I think those would be tied. If you want to do Fab Five character dining, Tusker House is the way to go. If you want to do princesses, Akershus is the way to go.
So I actually have a different one. For me, it's Garden Grill. We love that one. The food is really good, both at breakfast and at lunch, dinner. It's Mickey, Pluto, and Chippendale, so it's kind of the Fab Five-ish Mickey things. It's got the uniqueness and the whole restaurant spins, and it goes over an attraction and stuff like that. And it's usually not too hard to get a reservation for there.
Fairly
food's
easy.
really good. Again, it's family style, but you can get as much as you want. The desserts are always good. So that's our favorite one. That's kind of like our go-to for character meals. The problem is we don't do it that often because there's so many good options in Epcot. But we like that one. We've done that several times.
That's probably the most canceled reservation for me. I've never been there. It just doesn't seem appetizing to me because my wife's vegetarian. There's not really great vegetarian options there. And my wife just looks at it. It looks like a 1980s mall. Why do I want to sit there? I'm like, it's cool. It spins. Where else are you going to see that? But maybe one day. But again, like there's so many other things at Epcot I want to try first before Garden Grill and spend all that money on that. Anyway, I'm with you on that one. What's last?
And then the last one is which of the table service in-park dining that you haven't done yet, but that you most want to do.
All right, so before we go on, the character meals in park, just in case you were wondering, are Akershus, Cinderella's Royal Table, Crystal Palace, Garden Grill, Highwood, and Vine, and Tusker House. I think the only one that we haven't mentioned was Hollywood and Vine. Now, the list of sit-down restaurants in parks, I'm going to rattle these off here, Phil. 50s Primetime Cafe, Be Our Guest, Beer Garden, Chefs de France, Coral Reef Restaurant, which I always forget that's a restaurant until every time I see it. Beer Garden, Chef, Diamond Horseshoe, Skipper's Canteen, Le Crepier de Paris, La Hacienda de Saint Angel, Liberty Tree Tavern, Mama Melrose, Nine Dragons Plaza Restaurant, Rainforest Cafe, Rose and Crown, Roundup, Rodeo Barbecue, St. Angel Inn, Sci-Fi Dine-In, Shiki Sai, Space 220, Spice Road Table, Teppan Ito, Tony's Town Square Restaurant, Tutto Italia, which I totally forgot was a thing, Via Napoli, and Yak and Yeti. Thank you. Okay. Which one's what I want to try, but I haven't. I'm really interested in the Coral Reef Restaurant just because it's like I totally forget that there's one in there and I want to check it out. But basically, this whole list is like I just haven't eaten a ton of these, and I just make me a list. I want to just go down. Maybe one day we'll do like a week-long thing with when the kids are older, and we'll do like a new restaurant every single night that we haven't been to. But right now, eating out is not a priority for our family. Because I have an 11-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 7-year-old, and
maybe we can hit up a couple next year when you have the free. Well, you're doing the free quick service. If you ever have the free like table service one, like traditional one, that could be a fun opportunity.
I mean, we're still doing some like 3 sit-down meals, so maybe we'll pick from this list. Maybe we'll do some old favorites. I don't know, but I definitely want to try some new stuff for sure. And if I had to pick one, Coral Reef Restaurant, just because I always forget. Like, Coral Reef Restaurant. What is that? Is that Disney Springs? No, it's an Epcot. So forget about it. What about you? What's one that you haven't?
So for me personally, it's Shiki Sai. My oldest and my wife went there on their trip and they loved it. And I've only seen positive reviews of it. It looks like food totally up my alley. Fun drinks and lots of different food. Again, it's like meant to like they bring out the food as it's ready. It's like for sharing and stuff like that. So that's for me. That's the one I want to go to. But some people in my family have been to. So the one that none of us have been to that I'd like to do sometime is Le Cellier in Canada. We haven't done that one, partly because my wife doesn't eat beef, so we don't do a lot of steakhouses. Yeah. But I know they have some options for her, and there are definitely some things that she would like. So I'm hoping we can get there at some point. The other problem with it is that I just saw a review of it today, and it's like everybody gets the same thing. It's like they have the cheddar soup. They have this poutine that looks amazing, but it's huge. And then you get a steak, and then you get dessert. And I'm like, I want to eat all that, but I don't want to eat all of that and then go to a theme park and ride rides and stuff like that. So that's one of the reasons we haven't done it yet, is that it doesn't feel like something you want to do and then go on a bunch of rides.
Yeah, no, imagine going on that and then going on Guardians. Thank you. No. Where is Tutto Italia? I mean, obviously. It's in the pavilion.
Italy pavilion of in Epcot. So it's if you're going towards the back and like Via Napoli straight ahead, it's on the left.
Is it really? I never realized there was a restaurant there.
So there's two parts. There's Tutto Italia, which is like the sit down restaurant, like which is kind of traditional Italian, and then there's Tutto Gusto, which is like the wine bar, but you can also order like smaller plates there too. So I've been to Tutto Gusto. I haven't been to.
Would never eat Italian food at Disney World because Italian food and heat never really that's just it's a heavy pasta meal. The same thing. I never want to do it, and I've got good Italian food up here in the Northeast, so there's better things to do. So this is going to be our DBC engagement for this week. You don't have to write these down. I'll be posting these in Discord. But try to think of your favorite fancy signature. I would say
for that one, it doesn't have to just be one of the signatures, but a nicer one like that you like to go to.
I don't know how we're defining that, but I guess you guys can define it for yourself.
Define
too.
it for yourselves.
Yeah, have some fun with it. So your favorite fancy restaurant, you have this in quotes in our show notes, or your most underrated, surprised you the most, your favorite character meal, and what want to do, but you haven't yet. So what's on your bucket list for Disney World? We're probably going to do maybe an out of park one of these, and that doesn't include Disney Springs, and maybe we'll do like a Disney Springs centric episode also for that. So I think that's a good idea as for ideas in the future. Okay, so we are just over the hour mark, I think. Phil, did I forget anything that we need to get to?
No, I just did want to welcome. We had a new subscriber
yes.
to our YouTube channel, Jack Andrew Boner. So thank you for subscribing and hope you're enjoying the content. And yeah, for everyone out there, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do like and share and tell your friends and all that sort of stuff and join Discord.
Have a great week, everybody, and thank you for watching.
Take care.